the moment finance is able to program themselves and do advanced apportionment instead of paying in arrears, there will be no challenges for free senior high school. They twisted my words. It was so well twisted.
How?
Because you see, the buildings that are collapsing, we are replacing them. Why would I paint that building? I believe you can incentivize change. Without that incentive, nobody will have opted to allow students who did not do science to become engineers. The way we shine abroad, if we can focus, we can shine and shine brighter in Ghana.
Welcome to this very special edition of Talk Time. And today, we are talking about a special personality, and we are talking about a topic which is very, very special. We're going to be talking about education. What is happening in the field of education? And we're also going to be talking about the man with ultimate responsibility for education. What is he doing? What is his background? What is the future? Welcome to Talk Time. Welcome back to Talk Time. And as I indicated from the very beginning, we're going to be doing something very, very special. We're going to be talking about education, and we're going to be talking to the Minister of Education, Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum. We're going to be finding out what has been happening in that ministry for some time. We're going to be talking about what the future holds for that ministry and what the future holds for the young men and women preparing to take up leadership in all fields of endeavor. Doc, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. It's an opportunity, great opportunity to be seated in front of you.
Wow.
and talking about education. And I like the name Talk Time because it's truly the time to talk. It's the time to talk about education in Ghana. So I'm privileged to sit in front of you to do the talking.
First of all, Doc, we'd like to know who you are. Who is Dr. Adutwum? Where do you come from? What have you done? You know, who are you?
Thank you so much. It's a very interesting question. Who is Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum? Right now, I'm the Minister for Education. But before that, I was not in the Ghanaian political space. So those who have followed the Ghanaian political space and looking at the actors in that space probably have seen me just a few years ago. I'm a young, when I was young, I grew up in Ashanti, Western region because my father was a migrant cocoa farmer in a village called Amtubam and Memphis Central District. Those days, no car went to Amtubam, so we walked 10 miles from Mansour, Memphis to get there. Grew up there before I started school, and whenever school was on recess, vacation as we called it, I'll go there and weed on the cocoa farm and do all the kind of things that cocoa farmers' children did at the time. And then, fortunate enough to have gone to senior high school at my hometown, Jachi Pramso, senior high school. From there, then it was called secondary at the time. And then went on to Kumasi High School at the sixth form. From there to KNUST, where I did land economy, and Providence have a way of catapulting people into a certain space that they never imagined. Found myself in the United States of America, became a high school teacher. In the process, got a wonderful opportunity. Americans were looking for solutions to the abysmal performance in their public schools all across the country. President Reagan sponsored what became known as the Nation at Risk, that lamented that public education was collapsing and something needed to be done about it. And then later on, various ideas came up. It then ended up leading to the time of President Clinton, George Bush, the second one, and they were all looking for solutions. to the challenges being faced by the American public education system, which then led to the development of charter schools. These are schools funded by individuals, privately run, but funded by the government. The government provided all the funding, and I became one of the pioneers in the development of some of those schools in California, Los Angeles specifically. And that's where I was. And one day I got the news that somebody running for office in Ghana, New Patriotic Party candidate, was going to visit my school. And I also happened to be a member of the party. So I gladly welcomed him. He came to one of my school, he saw what was going on there. And when I was introduced, he said, Krachi, how are you able to do this in America, of all places? You are from Ghana. And I said, I'll talk to you later about it. He said, no, say it in front of everyone. There were 200 people gathered there. And then I didn't want to be seen as tooting my horn or bragging. So I said, I'll talk to you. I said, no, tell everybody. So after I explained to him how I found myself in a charter school, building schools for Americans, then he said, would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system? And I said to myself, I couldn't vocalize as a politician. What is he going to do? Then I said, but Nana, what are you going to do differently? And then he said, I want to introduce free secondary education. And Americans in modern history were the ones who introduced free secondary education. So I want to introduce in Ghana, and I need somebody like you to come and help me. I felt like, okay, politician, is he going to go by his promise? Then later on, he asked me to speak with Honorable Osafoma for all the party bigwigs were there. They were following him around the United States, and I spoke with them. And I began to realize that the guy meant what he was saying. So I decided to consult some of my American mentors. And I remember a conversation with one of the mentors who happened to be a former congressman. When I pop up the subject of coming back to Ghana, he said, Yaw, you've done so well here. Your schools are doing well. But I want to tell you one thing. America can do without you. But maybe your country cannot do without you. So if that candidate wants to introduce free secondary education, and you've never had it in the country, I would advise you to go. So
that's how you came back.
That's how I came back.
Now, your entry into the field of education sounds like accidental, was it?
I had always felt that education needed to be transformed in Ghana. Coming from the background that I came from, accidental in the sense that I did not do a bachelor's degree in education. I was not a professional teacher in Ghana. When I got to America with a degree in land economy, and I decided that I would teach. So I started in America something called substitute teacher. They'll put you in a classroom when the regular teacher is not there. So I did that for about 1.5 years. And then they were changing from single track to double track. It's called year-round schools. And they needed more teachers. So that's how I got hired. And then I loved it. So accidental in the sense that is not what I intended doing. But I found myself in the education space. And then saw through my master's in education program, postgraduates in education program, found a PhD in education. I studied international education. So I look at education as a vehicle for socioeconomic transformation in Asia and other places around the world. And I began to look at it, wow, these are the gaps in our Ghanaian education system. And if we're going to use education to transform our country, there are certain things we have to do, that, like the South Koreans did. So when I got the opportunity, speaking with Nana Addo Akufo-Addo then, in my mind I was saying to myself, if I were to enter into politics, then I have the opportunity to really bring all these ideas to bear in the Ghanaian education space. Now I don't have to go and convince some politician who will just say, go away. Now I'll have the pulpit. In America, they say the bully pulpit. I will have the opportunity of a lifetime. So I was so quiet. And I said, okay, let them give it to me. And then I became deputy minister, waiting. During that time, some great ideas I was able to contribute. But when I became a minister, I said, wow, here is a rare opportunity. We can change our public schools. We can do STEM education. We can do education just like the South Koreans did, transform TV. So all those opportunities in alignment with the vision of the president then was thrown into my lap. And I said, I have to grab it and run.
You keep mentioning what the South Koreans did. What did they do?
You see, if you look at 1960 is the turning point where people used to look at. If you look at the per capita income of South Korea at the time and that of Ghana, we had a higher per capita income than South Korea. South Koreans did some unique things. Of course, they industrialized. They supported industries. They were able to actually identify some industry they needed to solve. Samsung, all of that. There was a conscious effort by the government. But one thing they did was that they also transformed the education system as they were industrializing. Whether it's into heavy manufacturing, they were doing engineering programs, aligning the needs of the education system to that of industry. So if industry identified they needed more engineers, they had to get the university, private and public, to begin to look at how do we train more engineers. So it was that alignment that made them use education to change their fortunes. Also improving the work ethic. They infused that into the people through their education system. So they were able to combine engineering, TVET, in a very unique way to really look at, we see education as a tool for socioeconomic transformation. You see, invariably, nobody disputes the importance of education. Every country, individuals look at education as very important. They want their children to get the best of education. But invariably, we don't go beyond the individual benefit and look at the national benefit. And when you look at the national benefit, then you are looking at education and say, everybody should be given opportunity. That is access. Then once you grant access, then you look at yourself and say, is the education I'm giving to these young men and women relevant to the socioeconomic needs of my country? And then the next leg is, what about the quality of the education that I'm giving to these people? So you do your needs assessment to know that you need more engineers. What kind of engineers are you going to produce? Are they going to be book engineers, hands-on engineers? That is where the quality comes in. You provide opportunity for 4 C's to be implemented. 4 C's is where you talk about collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, effective communication. So that is what enhances the quality of your education system. That takes you away from rote memorization, where you have young men and women who are creating things. So when you look at TVET, the South Korean way, they are not looking at TVET where you are fixing broken down machines manufactured in America. It's a TVET that says, I am designing new machines. Now, if you're going to do that TVET, the foundation should be STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So you are not just fixing, but you look at the machines that were done in other countries, then you are taking it apart and you are building your own. Before you know, you are building your own machines. I recently went to Austria. We're negotiating to have an organization there called VASI give us more funding to come and retool our TVET institutions. Something profound happened. We met at a hotel, and then the people that we're meeting with, at the end of the meeting said, in 2013, this room where we are sitting with you, we sat with the Chinese. And they had come here to get the same loan that you guys are getting. They got the loan after negotiating in this room. They bought the same equipment that we are going to be supplying to you. But 10 years after, they are supplying the same machines to your country. They are not here again negotiating. And the people said, your story may not be that dramatic. It may take more than 10 years. But why are you not working on it? So that one day, other African countries will be coming to you and not coming to us. So how do we get there? If you talk about TVET as a very important, and I hear people talk about it all the time, but the TVET that the Germans use, TVET that the South Koreans use, may not be the TVET we are doing now. It's TVET of innovation, TVET of critical thinking. So if you are sewing, people also studying how to build a new sewing machine. That is the kind of TVET that transformed Germany and made Germany a great place. It's a TVET of creation. That is why collaboration, getting people to work together, creativity is critical. Critical thinking, no longer rote memorization. You don't expect the student to memorize things to you, whether it's any kind of education. So at the end of the day, you are looking at an education system where you have what is called access, allow everybody to have an opportunity, but ensure that you are also improving the quality of the education system. But that is not good enough. The education must be relevant to the socioeconomic needs of your country. And if you combine the three, then it will take you to STEM education. It will take you to a new kind of TVET of innovation. It will take you to a place where you're going to require drawing, art in your TVET schools. Because you see, engineering came from art. So the idea that in Ghana, some students will do visual arts, and after they do visual arts, we tell them they will never be engineers. No visual arts students get to become an engineer in Ghana. If the most creative minds, the people who can look at us and draw pictures of new machines that they are imagining, if we tell them that they will never be engineers in Ghana, who are engineers? We've sanitized the engineering space. We've taken away those who are creative, and we are left with those who can't draw anything. Then they go to university, then we have to teach them how to draw. But those who can draw will never be given a chance. So I'm so happy that we've now been able to do what is called pre-engineering in Ghana, where the students who did visual arts, home economics, general arts, go to university for 1 year and spend the 1 year learning chemistry fixes and mathematics, advanced math, and they sit for exams at the end of the 1 year. If they pass it, they can also become engineers. And UMath, Pentecost University, they are offering it. And if you ask me, one of the things that makes me very happy is that, and then the transformation of public schools.
That's it. What kind of schools were you running in the United States of America? I know that they're chartered schools.
Yeah.
But what kind of schools? Schools that prepare people for engineering, for medicine, general arts. What kind of school were you running?
You've done your research well, because I did all that. Yeah, we decided to create a school with career pathways. So we started from the junior high schools begin from what we call primary 6. There is grade 6. So junior high school is grade 6, 7, and 8, 3 years. And high school is 4 years. So they have 7 years secondary. 3 is junior high, the other 4 is high school. So my school had a combined enrollment in terms of, it starts from junior high, it goes all the way to high school. The focus is on engineering, finance, medical sciences, law. This was the career pathway. So from junior high, you did everything. When you get to high school, you selected one of the career paths. There are 5 of them. Information technology, which is computer science. You do finance, you do law, medicine, and then engineering. So students chose their career pathways. But everybody did biology, chemistry, and physics.
Compulsory?
Yes.
Why?
Because you see, that is the foundation for innovation. Once you get your sciences right, then you can do engineering, because engineering is applied science. And then those who are doing law, in the US, an interesting thing about the education system that is mathematics driven.
Even law?
It's interesting. If you want to go to Harvard, you want to go to Yale, if you did not do advanced mathematics, which is calculus, You don't get admission because everybody has gone beyond Algebra 2. Their education system is very interesting because in high school you can do Algebra 1, and some people do the Algebra 1 in junior high. So when they go to high school, they do geometry. So you do geometry. From geometry, you go to Algebra 2. From Algebra 2, you go to pre-calculus. Then you end up with calculus. For top universities, it doesn't matter if you're going to do literature. They look at the highest level of mathematics that you did. In fact, in University of California system, which has so many campuses in California, if you did not do Algebra 2, you can't even apply. And even if you are studying French, even if you are studying German language, you still will have to meet the minimum because they think that citizens must have a critical skill in mathematics for your own sake, for future development, entrepreneurial skills, your accounting and finance, mathematics important. So they've made a point that if you want to go to certain universities, you must have a strong foundation in mathematics. So every one of them, the law student, everybody, and they do biology, chemistry, and physics. But we did it differently. In the US, if you're doing biology, you don't have to do it 3 years. When you go to high school, your first year, biology, 1 year. Second year, you do chemistry. The next year, you may do physics. And then after that, if you are so good, then you can do advanced physics or advanced chemistry. They don't have a system where students are doing biology 3 years, chemistry 3 years, physics 3 years. No, they don't. And as a result, students have time to do so many other things that makes them well-rounded. So they will do English literature. They will do French or foreign language for 3 years. And that is also a requirement for going to Harvard and Yale and these universities. If you have not done at minimum 2 years of foreign language, you can apply. So they've structured their system in such a way that they produce well-rounded individuals. And then you go to the university and you have the first 2 years doing all sorts of subjects before you select your major. Yes.
Now, sir, what kind of community were your schools catering for?
Actually, we were in the urban area, what we call inner city. So we're dealing more with urban children, African American, limited number of Asians, and then more Latinos who were immigrants, first generation, second generation, coming from El Salvador, Mexico, all these countries. So it was and then a limited number of African immigrants. So it was a very diverse, and maybe some white people live in the community and they would then enroll there. Now I'm seeing more white people coming there. When the school is good, people come.
Yeah.
So that was a very diverse environment, and it gave me a double opportunity. I could relate to the black students who were not even immigrants because of the color of my skin. And I could relate to the Latinos because I'm an immigrant. So when I'm talking to the Latino students, I'll tell them that, hey, you better study. Your parents did not come to America because of hamburgers. They did not come here to eat hamburgers. They came here to seek better opportunity for you. That is why they traveled through the desert. Some of their friends died. They made it here through the Rio Grande River, came to America for you to get better opportunity, gave birth to you here, and you playing around in my school? No, I'm an immigrant like you, and I'm not going to allow you. So I could talk to them and get them excited, and the parents love me because they know that I'm communicating their expectations to their children. And the black students, I'll tell them, I'm black like you. So then tell me you can't make it. And this was the period before Obama. They said, don't tell me you can't make it. I'm black like you. But I gave this speech one day to the children in one of the classes. And then this boy was bad. Jonathan said, sir, why are you lying to us?
And what was the lie?
And I said, Jonathan, why am I lying to you? He said, look at the wall. And this was a social studies class. In America, in all social studies classroom, you have the pictures of all the presidents on the wall. So he said, look at the pictures on the wall. who is black there? All white men. And you are telling us we can be whoever we want to be. And I said, Jonathan, you know what? You may be the first black president, but Jonathan didn't get to be.
Yeah.
One day we heard about Obama, and I took all the students. He was going to speak close to the school as a candidate. And I asked all the students to go and see him. And the day he won the election, the day after, there was no classes. We all sat in an assembly hall, just talking to them, and I caught them. I said, hey, now you can't play around. A black man is our president. So don't give me excuses that you can't. So I used Obama, leveraged him to inspire them that they too could become.
My understanding is that you run a chain of schools. How many schools are there in the chain?
I have 3 schools. Each one of them is a junior high school combined, and have over 200 workers. And it's a kind of interesting environment. The CEO is from Ghana. He took over from me, Paul Kaite. He went to Presec. He's a Ghanaian man. He's in charge of the schools as CEO, and the HR is also a Ghanaian from Ashanti region, and then you have Latinos, you have white people. So it's a very diverse team running the show, and it puts Ghana on the map because people come to the schools, the Ghanaians are in charge here, and the children are doing so well. It speaks to the uniqueness of this nation, and that's why I believe in Ghana, because the way we shine abroad, if we can focus, we can shine and shine brighter in Ghana. Because my school, the first 3 years, the top scoring student, when they started graduating, was always a Ghanaian.
Wow.
And people will ask, what is unique about Ghana? Remember one morning, one of my security guards called me on our radio and said, can you believe it? I said, what do you want me to believe? He said, there's this boy from Ghana. He's standing in front of the board, solving math problems by himself. He couldn't believe that he's solving math problems. And I said, that is what we do in Ghana. We study.
Well, viewers, this is part of the story. The story of the gentleman who worked his way in the US and established a chain of schools, and who is now the Minister of Education. We're now going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'd like to find out from the Minister how he entered Ghanaian politics, and then we can continue from there. Short break. Back to Talk Time, and we are in conversation with Dr. Adutwum, Minister of Education. Now, Doc, you were in the United States of America. President Akufo-Addo visits, and he has a conversation with you about coming to participate in the restructuring of the educational system. How did you end up in Parliament, and why?
Very interesting conversation I had with him. Very brief though. Recently I was with him in Portugal, and we were all reminiscing, talking about how we met. and when he asked me if I would consider, very respectful, saying, instead of saying come, he said consider. And I told him I would consider. So as I said, I met with a mentor of mine who told me something that touched my heart, that maybe your country cannot do without you, but America is always going to be America, even though we recognize your contribution. He really made me aware that I have to be thinking about my country and what I could do here. So I decided that I will come back to Ghana. In fact, up until my meeting with another Danko Akufo-Addo, who was then a candidate for president, I had an idea that I'll probably run for Congress in the US. I was thinking I would naturalize and go into politics there. It's interesting. When I started work, I divided my time into 3 phases. I told myself I would teach for 10 years. After that, I would run schools. And then for 10 years, and after that, after the 10 years of running school, I went into politics. So it was a question whether I would do it in the US or doing somewhere else. And it was more about going to US Congress. I wanted to be the first African immigrant to be in US Congress. Politics fascinates me, especially when I think it will give me an opportunity to change education and make it more relevant to the needs of the people. Then things changed when I met Nana Danko Kufuor. I decided to come back home. So when I came to my constituency, Abosomtwe, prior to that, I had done some work there. I had built a high school there, private high school, in those era where a number of students couldn't get to the public school, public high school because of the concept of cutoff. I had a school there that was giving admission to a number of students from the area, subsidizing them, giving them scholarship. So I had done some work there before I entered the political scene. But everybody told me that I was going to lose because I did not understand the Ghanaian politics. And I always tell them the story of how politics were done in southern United States, where among the blacks, they used to send a message. They have this voice messages that can be recorded on your phone. And before elections, they will send a message, the white people will send them in and say, the election has been postponed to the next week. So some black people will sit at home by the time the elections are over and their candidate has lost. So I told them, politics is the same everywhere. Don't tell me there are more tricks in Ghanaian politics than the American politics. So I came in fully aware that that is what they were going to tell me. And they said, this is your first time, you're going to lose, and maybe you are testing the waters. And I said, no, I have no time to test waters. I'm here to win. So I hired a consultant who did research for me and who showed me the evidence that I was going to win. So I entered with the full assurance that I was going to win. And I was competing against a very formidable candidate in the person of the current Ashanti Regional Minister.
My friend, Simon.
Yeah, Simon. So he was a formidable candidate. And we entered the space. What I had going for me was that I knew where I was weak and which areas I was strong. I was able to target the areas that I was weak. And I never criticized him. I never said anything negative about him. I only sold myself. I told them this is who I am. But they were fascinated by the fact that I had gone to America and I was building schools there. And for their sake, I was coming back. Some of them couldn't believe it. But in my case, I was lucky. I had brought the chief of my village to America together with a huge entourage. They had come to see the schools. So they had come back telling people that it's true. And one time I was able to organize about 200 Americans who did a tour of Osomtwe. So they had seen that I had also brought Americans. So at a point, it was the people who were demanding from the delegates that they should vote for me because they've never seen anybody who have gone abroad and so successful and wants to come back. So I won 72% of the primary votes at the delegate level. And then I announced my presence on the national scene from that date forward. Also, of course, in Ashanti, when you win the primaries in most of the constituencies you are done. And from there, I was able to then come to Parliament, become Deputy Minister, and now the Minister for Education. So I entered with a different kind of thinking. I entered with the understanding that I need to research and that I need to know what the people are concerned about, and I need to know what may go against me. And with that, I was able to win and then go to the president and say, Mr. President, I'm here. And he couldn't believe that I came back. He couldn't believe that I came back to Ghana after my encounter with him, because I didn't bother him. When I came, I did not even announce my presence to him that I'm here. I started the work on the ground.
I asked that question because here you are, the president invites you to assist him realize his dreams about education. And you can do that without becoming a member of parliament.
Yes.
So I wanted to understand why you chose to become a member of parliament in spite of the assurances of the president.
Very interesting question. Because I knew that the Constitution requires that a certain percentage of his ministers and deputy ministers should come from parliament. So I felt that I have a better chance. I didn't want to take his word for it. I should be very frank with you. I was thinking, what about if he forgets? So at least I will be a member of parliament. But some people also had a different advice for me. They said, just wait. Don't quit your job to come and run for office. When he wins, then he brings you in. But I felt I had to go all out. And also to convince him that I'm serious about what I intend doing and that I'm coming to parliament. And from there, God willing, he wins, he gave me opportunity. And I had a firm belief that he was going to win. It was a gamble, nonetheless. Because what about if he didn't win? Then you are in parliament, and what are you doing? How do you help change the education system when your government is not in power? So yes, it was a very interesting. But I had this faith that something was going to happen, and I was going to get a chance. I took a chance, and went to parliament.
Now, Honorable, initially you were deputy minister.
Yes.
You had a minister.
Yes.
Did that pose any difficulty for you in terms of your vision and how to realize your vision and so on? Because as a minister, you had a boss.
Of course.
What if he said no? What if he frustrated you? You
see, one of the things I've come to realize is that if you are a leader, you also have to know how to follow. So anytime that I was called to his office, I went with my notepad, ready to take notes. I made him know that I was serving him, and I was also serving the president. And our operation invariably, and for most of the times, was about sitting in a meeting, hearing people speak about different things, hearing the ministers and interjecting and saying some things. And to the extent that my idea was in alignment with him, I came in to support with the research and with the data to reinforce what he was articulating. Where his ideas was not in alignment with what I knew as best practice, I kept quiet. And the next day, early in the morning, I will be in his office. And then I'll prompt him and say, based on what I know, the best way to do this is if we take this route instead of this. For example, when we have a huge surge in enrollment and the second year of free senior high school, and there were no facilities. We went to a meeting and people were panicking. Most people were advocating that we should do a cutoff. You know, cutoff is very interesting. Many years ago, they used to call it pass no way. You have passed the exam, but there's no way for you. So literally you have failed. So pass no way had been a stock in trade in the Ghanaian education system since the time of Buzia. So many students passed the common entrance and we can admit them all. So we say that if you did not get this aggregate, you are not going. And that's how we had done free senior high school enrollment cutoff point. So in some years, you get aggregate 28, you will not be able to go. The interesting thing is that we then push them to private schools. So when the Ghanaian youth enrollment went through the roof, with the use of cutoff, the government was not under any compulsion or sense of urgency to build more schools. So all that they needed to do was to say that if you got aggregate 28 or higher than aggregate 28, we are not going to allow you to enroll in a public high school, but you can go to private. And then we will push the student to private school in the computer placement system. So at that time, the computer placement system had private schools. So if you don't get into a public school, we'll send you to the private school. The irony of it is that majority of the people that we pushed to private schools were those from deprived communities, were those who didn't do well on the BEC. And those were the ones that we are telling them, go to private, find money, and pay to go to a private school. And a number of them, of course, don't have the money, so they don't show up. Over 100,000 every year were not going because the opportunity was not presented to them. If 100,000 were even those who had qualified and had met the requirements of the cutoff, another 50,000 would be cut off completely. So when we started the free senior high school and the president said we should give advantage to all, then the question was, where are the buildings? So one early morning, I went to my minister and I said, there's a new system around the world. In America, we used it when we were changing high schools from 3 to 4 years. And there was a need for more facilities, and the government could not afford it in the short term. In California, we use year-round schools. And this is how it worked. So I explained it to him. He asked, let's go to the president. Explained to the president. President was sold and said, if that is the way that we can ensure that all children get access to my free senior high school, go ahead and implement it. So it wasn't something that I brought up in a big meeting. I knew human beings are human beings in as much as he may need your ideas. It depends upon where and how you bring it into the picture, into the discussion. So that's just an example of how I was able to maneuver and work through the system to ensure that some of my ideas could find a place in the education system until I became a minister, where I didn't have to. I didn't have to convince anybody but the president. I said, Mr. President, we can change public schools, even though it's not part of your manifesto. I'm going to build more better equipped public schools, because my whole thinking is taxpayer pays his or her taxes. We should guarantee that taxpayer a quality public kindergarten, primary and junior high school. That is 11 years of education before high school. In other advanced countries, that is the promise of the government to the people. In America, rarely do you have people going to private schools, because the public school is the place that, in fact, they will tell you the public school system is what binds the nation together. Where the rich and the poor meet, the white and the black meet, the Latino is there, a more diverse environment. Compared to ours, where 30% of our population, who happens to be those who are well-to-do, leave our public school system for 11 years, only show up in high school. And when they show up there, of course, they go to the top-notch schools because they work hard for it. But my thinking is, how do I create a public school system where the children of the judges and the laborers and the lawyers all sit in the same classroom, creating a more unified nation, a nation where we become friends of one another, not when we get to the high school, where the deprived may not even get to the same high schools that the advantaged are going to, but a nation where we form friendships at early ages, and the quality is the quality we all want for our children.
Now, say, initially, the free SH system was humbugged by resource restrictions, lack of resources and so on. Did you experience that, and how did you overcome that?
The interesting thing about resources is that in terms of budget, we don't like resources. So, and many times when I hear people say that you don't have money and you are forcing yourself, and I tell them, no, we have approved budget and everything is catered for. The only issue is the release of timely release of funds. You see, my funds have always come since we started. There's never been like the 6th year, everything has been released to me. 7th year now, we're going to the 8th year, literally. And my 7-year funds, still some may be outstanding, but it's coming. So the issue is not about lack of funds to run free senior high school. It's a cash flow management issue. So that is why if I get a vendor who's willing to wait for 90 days, I solve my cash flow problem that way. And I'm able to get the resources, the food that go to the schools. As I speak with you, if you look at the 30% of the feeding cost that we give to headmasters, we've paid up till the end of March. We are now going to pay April. So it is an issue of cash flow management, not limited budgetary allocation. So what we are in discussion with the Ministry of Finance now is that why don't you do what is called advanced apportionment? In the US, in our schools funded or supported by government, we do what is called advanced apportionment. That means you pay in advance. So before school start, they give you 25% of the funds that you need. So it's the same thing I tell people all the time, that when you come to Ghana, your rent is due at the end of the month. So landlord comes to you, says, "Bosomi aso to America." In America, your rent is due at the first of the month. You can't leave a day before you pay. So that is the concept of advanced apportionment. So the moment finance is able to program themselves and do advanced apportionment instead of paying in arrears, there will be no challenges for free senior high school, because it has never been the issue of budgetary allocation. It has always been managing the cash flow, release of funds from the Minister of Finance to the controller. So that's why I tell people all the time that don't let us look at the program in terms of budgetary allocation. The cash flow issue, the Ministry of Finance is now looking at advanced. If they do advanced apportionment, you have no problem running free senior high school. So it's not as if the committee of the government, the budgetary allocation is not there, but government has now to decide the same way that we pay salaries. Even through COVID, we're paying salaries on time. Can we look at this as a priority program? And if so, do advanced apportionment instead of payment in arrears. And once you do that, then the system is now oiled in such a way that you're not going to have any challenges with the cash flow. So cash flow will then align with budgetary allocations, and you have a very solid program being run by the nation. So I always want to make that, because a number of times people think that you don't have the money and you say you do this. Why are you not stopping if we don't have the money? And I said, no, the way government budgeting and funds release work has created the impression that somehow the money is not there. But if it were any other ministry, any other program, you're going to say it that way. But this one, you have children, you have 1.4 million mouths to feed every single day, rising from 800,000 before free senior high school. Consequently, you may have a school where there are some challenges. They were supposed to go and pick up the food, the vehicle broke down. So I can't sit here and tell you that no school has had any challenge. No. But it's not something that is so pervasive like it happened during the school feeding scholarship program in the North. Those times, headmasters were shutting down schools because there was no food, no money to buy food to feed the students. So it's not the same. But you know that if everything runs well, why should we be in the news? We get in the news when there's a problem because they want to alert us that there's a problem. So unfortunately, if you don't hear from us when everything is running well, when things don't get well, it's amplified for it to appear that things are falling apart. Recently, they talk about feeding challenge, so I drove to Presec, went there to see how things were going. Went to a dining hall, they were eating bread, everything was great. And I asked the students, I said, no, here we don't have any problem. The students were so fun. He said, sometimes we hear from some of our friends that they are having food challenge, but Presec, we don't have any challenge. And I went to one of they have two dining halls. One dining hall, a corner has been used as a food, like a food bank. That's where because Presec is a pick-up point for other schools. That's where they go for their food. And it was rice, everything was there.
What then was the problem with the buffer stock company?
You see, the buffer stock company did very well at the initial stages. But later on, during the 5th year, I began to realize that they did not have the capacity.
In terms of cash?
Cash and also general capacity, because we had literally gone for over 50% growth in enrollment. Mm-hmm. And it was getting very difficult for them. So we immediately approached the commodity exchange to come and support them. So now we have 2 agencies, Commodity Exchange and the Ministry of Finance, and then NAFCO and the Ministry of Agric, and the 2 of them are supporting. So it's now better because the 2 agencies are leveraging on their own, they can borrow, use their own balances to fund us and make sure the food is in the schools. So essentially, as I've already said, you have a cash flow issue. Mm-hmm. And once that improves, like recently when we had about 300 million released, buffer stock was able to pay all outstanding arrears from 2023, got the suppliers happy to start supplying more because they know all arrears have been paid. Mm-hmm. Recently have institutional supply, those who sold school uniforms, they came, they were having time, got 26 million release, we gave it to them, paid them off, and they are happy. So at the end of the day, if cash flow improves, it makes for a smooth running of the program.
So what was the state of education when you first came in as deputy minister? What was the state of education? What had your predecessors done or not done? What was the state of education?
Very interesting and thought-provoking question, and I'm not surprised it's coming from you. State of Ghana's education system, a very interesting one. I'll start with science and humanities ratio. We've always said in this country, and presidents have talked about it, that we'll have a 60-40. 60% of our students at tertiary will be in the science-related fields, 40% in the humanities. Mm. And I come and we're working on the education strategic plan, which was started by the NDC, and we came to complete it. And that is now the Bible for education transformation in Ghana, education strategic plan. And we're in a meeting, and I was looking at the numbers, the students who were doing science in high school. And I was saying to myself, at that time, it was about 10% of all students who were doing science.
Only 10%.
Then I asked them, why are we talking about 60% at the tertiary? When at the high school, only 10% of our students are doing it. How do you change 10% to 60%? Mm-hmm. And everybody stopped and paused for a moment and said, we have never thought about this. Mm. So, lack of alignment with what is going on and the vision, you can see the disconnect. Where we want to go and where we are and how to get there was not thought through. So now it's about 14%, and yet we need to do something about that if we want to improve the numbers in the areas that the country needs the most, especially in the field of engineering, because now the artificial intelligence, computer, all that has become part of engineering. Mm-hmm. So the disconnect was one thing that had not been thought through carefully. So education was running, education was not looking at industry, and the demands on us in this 4th industrial revolution. Mm-hmm. So I think one thing I saw coming in was the disconnect. And then we began to look at it and say, okay, as soon as I became a minister, I said, okay, given this situation, short term, I need to be able to convince the universities to allow students who did not do science in high school to change their minds if they so desire and pursue engineering. The question is, how do you tell these universities to do this? So I decided that I will use a grant program. I'll tell them that whoever wants to do it, you submit a proposal. And if you are accepted, we'll give you a 200-seater bus worth $200,000. 65-seater bus worth $200,000. And that is the motivation for you. Apart from Legon, every university applied. So I believe you can incentivize change. Without that incentive, nobody will have opted to allow students who did not do science to become engineers. So we are now in the second year going to a third year. And the students who are doing it, the universities are telling me that they are doing better in their classes than those who did science straight from high school. Some of these people have graduated from high school and they were working. And they then went to apply to the universities, accepted, and they started engineering. Some did visual arts, and now they're going to get a chance of a lifetime to become engineers. So short term, you have to open the floodgates of engineering education to our students. They want to do computer engineering. They don't have to have done chemistry because you're not going to do any chemistry in computer engineering. And therefore, allow them to then come in. So we have to bridge the gap. Bridging the gap means we have to find non-traditional ways. Long term, we have to boost the number of students doing science and STEM in high school. So the STEM schools then become the pipeline for us to increase and be able to meet the 60-40 ratio of science to humanities. So the whole idea is that we know Vietnam produces 100,000 engineers a year. So Vietnam has become the industrial hub of Southeast Asia. Companies are moving to Vietnam. Samsung has its largest manufacturing plant in Vietnam. Every company that is manufacturing wants to go to Vietnam. Why? They produce 100,000 engineers a year. Vietnam has 97 million people. We have 32 million plus people. Ratio and proportion will show that we should be producing about 33,000 engineers a year if we want to be competitive. No, we're doing 6,500, at most 7,000 a year. So if I'm a company in UK who wants to locate somewhere, I'm not coming to Ghana. You don't have the critical mass of the people that I need. You don't have people doing manufacturing engineering. Why should I build my manufacturing plant here? So what we are looking at in the education space is that allow universities to offer programs that aligns with our aspirations to become an industrialized nation. If you can do that, have your short-term, medium-term, long-term goals of achieving that. So then you begin to see that education can serve its useful purpose as the most important vehicle for socio-economic transformation. So that was the first gap that I saw. Then I began to take a look at what makes us Ghanaians. Look at the education system and saw that our curriculum is not creating the kind of people that we want to see. So sometimes we lament and talk about the fact that the youth are not patriotic enough. And I say to myself, if I'm one of them, and you did not teach me the history of Ghana, I'm one of them, and I don't know much about Africa. I'm one of them. I don't know the sacrifices some people made for us to have this nation. Some people may have died in jail. They fought. They were wounded. Others lost their precious ones through coup d'etats. Things were difficult. People fought for us to get the democracy that we have today. How do I appreciate that when I don't know what you did? Then you talk about the youth. The youth had our attention for 14 years. They came to school. We told them what to do 14 years. Is it their fault that we did not select some classics, books that everybody needs to read? When they don't know much about this, you say you have after, and you want them to be able to take advantage of it when they don't know where Congo is. How will the youth run a company take advantage of other countries in Africa when there's no African geography? So that is a huge gap, and thank God it's being revised now, and we're going to get a curriculum that speaks to aspirations. But we also have to look at books that the children are reading. In America, there's something called the hidden curriculum. There are books that the students read that change their mindset. And that is why I always say that if you have twins, you keep one in Ghana, send one to America, get different type of education system. The one from America will come back and say, Daddy, I grew up in the nation that is on top of his game, the best in the world. I can do anything that I set my mind to do. The one from Ghana will tell you a different story and probably lament that the politicians are changing this country and everything is so bad. We are not reading about our heroes because it's not part of the Ghanaian classics, books that every child must read. So if you don't happen to come from a home where dad will say, here is a book to read, through the education system, we are not molding the minds of the next generation of Ghanaians. So these are some of the gaps that I saw having gone through the American education system. I would say these two critical gaps, and which told me that something needed to be done.
Now, Honorable, what would you consider as your most significant achievements in the ministry?
If you ask me, it's going to be interesting. I will say that free senior high school, of course, and another Dankwa Akufo-Addo's vision has not been implemented, even though there may be challenges. But when you have gender parity in secondary education in a sub-Saharan African country, it's a no less an achievement. I mean, it's no mean an achievement. Gender parity in secondary education is not something you see in sub-Saharan Africa. Before free senior high school, there were communities where every 100 boys that are in secondary school, you could find only 68 girls. Now it has flipped the last 2 years. In fact, this year, you have for every 106 girls that are in school, 100 boys are in school. Now you go to northern Ghana. If you do a league table of junior high to high school transition, in education, we measure junior high to high school transition. We find 100 students who graduate from junior high and say that out of the 100, how many move on to high school? In Ghana, we look at those who qualify because of exam, EC. Sometimes we have a 1% who may not qualify. So when we look at every 100 students who qualify to move on from junior high to high school, in the northern region, tops 95%. In fact, there's a district in northern region that has 99%. Out of every 100 students who qualify, 99 are in school now. And then Northeast and Savannah are second, each with 94%. Then it's followed by Upper East, 92%. The fifth or the fourth in terms of ranking, the fifth region then is Upper West with 89%. But the lowest, which is the 89, is higher than every region in the South. Something is going on. Education for socioeconomic transformation is happening in front of our own eyes in this country. How did we get to a point where we have more students going to senior high school, a higher proportion going to senior high school in the North? There will be never any argument about education leading to socioeconomic transformation 10 to 20 years from now. And now we have to turn to the South and look at what is happening in Volta region, the region with the lowest percentage of enrollment. And then the next is Central region, where we also have to do something about it. So there's no doubt that secondary education will be one of the most important legacies of the president. But I think what will be more profound is STEM education. And then the third, I would say, is the transformation of public schools. New schools we are building to replace dilapidated ones, the so-called schools under trees, are building new classrooms so that they can move them in urban areas, going to East Legon, and the huge edifice, I'll say, coming up as a public school from kindergarten to high school. On that stretch where you see Galaxy and R. Ryan, we have a public school that's much better than the private school. It's just to tell Ghanaians that change is possible and that we can move away from the rectangular shaped buildings painted brown and yellow, where students wear brown and yellow uniforms, to a new space, a new learning environment for 21st century education.
I was actually going to come to that because recently there was some controversy about painting schools and school uniforms and so on. And I thought it was important to get your reaction.
They twisted my words. It was so well twisted.
How?
Because you see, the buildings that are collapsing, we are replacing them.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I paint that building?
Paint the building that is collapsing.
So that it changes anything. We are rather saying we are replacing all those buildings. But I've made my point very clear that the brown and yellow should be a thing of the past. It's a symbol that is caring parents. You go to Asim Boys, a prestigious school in Kumasi. It used to be prestigious. Now, parents have left the school. I went there recently, 5 students in a class. Year child girls in the same area, famous girls' school, middle school in Kumasi, gone. Go to schools in Osu, 5 students in a KG class, and the teachers are lamenting. We are losing students. We can't get students to teach. It's so boring to teach here. Then I go to a school across, and it's a mission school, where we've now allowed them to go back to what mission schools used to do, wear their own uniform, and the classes are packed. We have a psychological issue here. And I believe that something needs to be done. So what I said in that presentation, now I do evidence-based communication, so I'll do a presentation, and I'll showing the audience that we're moving from this brown and yellow. And by the way, look at some of the schools that we have built. And these have white and blue colors. So I told them that. And then I said that the era of brown and yellow is over. I also showed them pictures of the building at Accra, at the East Legon. And it was white with some yellow designs on the building. It was not blue and white. So, in order for...
I hope we can show some of these pictures on the program.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So.
They need the people to see the Accra STEM Academy and all those schools. You see, people were applauding when they saw the new uniform that some of the schools had begun implementing. People were applauding at UPSA. And after the meeting, people said, we never imagined that children in our public schools would dress like those in private schools. And this is a new dawn in our public education system. Then people take that instead of the applause and say that all these rundown schools are going to be painted blue and white. And I said, you see, if you want to paint a caricature of a politician, no nothing politician, it cannot be me because I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to waste public funds painting buildings that I want to replace. Go to Azar MA school in Yellow Crow. Look at the rundown schools with bamboo sticks as the wall. I'm going to paint that blue and white. I've rather changed it. We have a new building there. We have new buildings there. So at the end of the day, I want Ghanaians to understand that we want to change the state of public education. They shouldn't fall for the propaganda. You see, somebody wanted to make sure that they can obscure the good news, the applause, and tell people that rather something bad is happening. But that slash and bend politics should not find expression in our education space, because this is the life, the life of this nation. The young ones who, when they get opportunity in this space, will think differently, will behave differently, will create a better Ghana for all. I think that we should take politics out of the education space. Interestingly, the media houses that carry this, nobody called us to say, is this really what is going to happen? They just made it appear that that's what I said. And then others fed off on it. And before you knew it was on social media. And I said, you can paint me a caricature of a do-nothing politician. Because at minimum, I always tell people that I'm lucky because some education ministers don't have this experience of having taught, run schools, especially in the US, back to my country, given a lifetime opportunity of a lifetime by the president to help change the education system. I'm lucky. And I'll use that opportunity very well. And I'll not do anything that would diminish education or waste public funds over painting of schools that are about to collapse.
As a matter of fact, it has been suggested that this propaganda could be internal. But I don't expect you to comment on it, But it has been suggested very strongly that it could be internal because of some internal contest and so on. Anyway, we are in a conversation with Dr. Adutwum, Minister of Education. We're going to take another short break. And when we come back, I'd like to ask the question that I really want to ask. We are hearing his name in some quarters, and so is he aware? What is his attitude? Will it happen? Won't it happen? Short break. Welcome back to Talk Time, and we are talking education. Just about to flip a little bit, Now, Honorable Dog, you do know that your name is in all kinds of places. And you're being mentioned as a possible vice presidential candidate. Obviously, you are aware of that.
The demographic made me aware. some weeks back, when they had me on the front page, say I'm one of the main contenders. I'm honored. I'm truly, truly honored that my name is mentioned. I grew up in a very, very humble background, the son of a cocoa farmer, spending my time between Ashanti and Western region. Vacation time going to weed around the cocoa trees. We pluck the trees, pack them at one location, break the pulps, ferment it, carry the fermented seeds onto the drying pad, and God willing, one day it dries up and you take it to the shed, as we call it, to sell, so that you get money. Your father will get money. When I passed the common entrance, and I was supposed to go to secondary school, it wasn't cocoa season, no money. My dad was struggling. He took me along from village to village, begging his fellow cocoa farmers if they can lend him something so that he can accumulate 40 cedis for me to pay my deposit to go to the aspirations. Luck was about to run out on me until my younger brother, the one who came directly behind me, decided that he would sell a pig that had been given to him, supporting my uncles on their piggery. With that sold, I was able to go to the aspirations. From there, went to Kumasi High Sixth Form to Tech, and then found myself in the United States of America, where I became not just somebody participating in the American system, but also very much involved in the Ghanaian community, where I became the president of the Ghana Association of Southern California, after being the secretary, having the opportunity to meet Spio Gabra when he was the ambassador, and later on Lanchira Martin and all these people who came. Then I found myself back here after also involving myself very much in MPP, overseas and abroad politics, where I rose to become the vice chairman of the California branch of the MPP. Then I found myself back in Ghana, new in the political space, given a great opportunity to become the Minister for Education. I always tell people that isn't it ironic that the son of an uneducated father and mother is the Minister for Education. So when this question is posed to me, I'm humbled. I'm honored that my picture will appear on the front pages of the Daily Graphic as a potential candidate for vice president of the New Patriotic Party. I know the choice is in the hands of the flag bearer. If he's so inclined to select me, I'll serve this country, and I'll serve the country well. I'll give him all the respect and follow his lead. Wherever he wants this country to go, which I know will be a very good place, I'll follow and I'll serve him and I'll serve this nation. But the choice is not in my hands. I pray to God that if God so touches his heart, I'm ready to serve. But until then, I'll continue to be the Minister for Education. And my goal is to become the best Minister for Education in the world. And I work every day to the rest of the time of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, serve this country faithfully, and leave a mark in the history of this nation.
Well, Doc, thank you very much for coming to our studio. We are so very grateful to you that you found time to come to the studio. This is your home. Anytime, any day, this is your home. All we want to do is to talk to everybody and make it possible for the people to understand what is happening in our society. And we're so very grateful that you came. Thank you very, very much. Thank you so very much. Now, to our viewers out there, viewers at home, viewers in the offices, viewers on social media and so on, I just want to end with what I say all the time. The best is on Pan-African television. Best in news, best in current affairs, best in entertainment, best in sports, best in everything. So please, keep your dial on Pan-African television until we meet again next week.